All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to Behind the Lines with Gabe and Kev. This is week 5 CCFL. Going over everything that happened. How you been, Kevin?
Doing good. It's Tuesday. Got a little cold, so if I sound a little hoarse, that's why. But still gotta put on for the people.
We got to push through.
You gotta push through.
We can just go ahead and dive in. A lot happened this week. There were a lot of trades, a lot of action, some very close games, but obviously my matchup first. Drop another one, and you can probably just hear it in my tone. I've had enough. um I This is the third in a row that I've dropped. This one obviously pretty bad, not as bad as last week, but 146 to 106. So I lose by 40. Kirk Cousins had a good game. Travis Etienne went off. Jacoby Myers, a promising game. He's like receiver 21 now, I believe. 19, even better. But there are some key holes. I mean, I am lacking in running back two. My wide receiver position is still up there, and then flex is a nightmare. Tal's team popped off again. Devon Achane had one last good game before he got injured. Stephon Diggs had a good game. Calvin Ridley had a good game. Dallas Goedert had the best game of the season. Tua, a respectable 17, and it just wasn't enough for the guys that I had underperforming.
Yeah, I think Tal, man, he just has another solid week. We saw it last week, and he did it again. And this team is solid. And then I think for you, it's another week of underperformance. I think to me the biggest gap is probably just Miles Sanders. Doesn't seem to really be getting the job done. Um, But yeah, overall, this is another nice win for Tal, and his team just keeps chugging along, man. Starting to get a little scary. I think is that two in a row? Did he start out 0-3 or 0-2,
He
or was
started out
he
1-2.
okay? But yeah, that's two solid weeks that he's starting to string together. And unfortunate for you, you just find the L column again.
Yeah, and now, I mean, taking a look at your matchup, you pulled out the W this time, 124 to 82 over Eli. You moving up to 3-2, Eli dropping a second game in a row to move down to 3-2. What are your thoughts?
This is the second time that my team has been pretty much within a point. I had 125 last week, 124 this week. It's definitely really good to see Joe Burrow coming back and having a strong performance. I was a little bit disappointed in Jonathan Taylor's return, but I'm confident with him going forward. And then losing Justin Jefferson is going to hurt me, obviously. So you'll have to figure out something. I had a couple of guys on a bye, so it's nice to get the win when I don't think Eli had anyone on a bye. So my guys came out to play, and I think this was Eli's worst week by a lot. So he kind of
Yeah,
just handed me a free W here by putting up a poor number, but I take those. So
yeah, and I did some hidden math on Monday night. After Devontae Adams was done, and unfortunately, if Eli had started Brock Purdy instead of Jordan Love, who got -1, and had started Christian Kirk as opposed to Matt Breida, he would have won by 1 point or like
there
2
you
points.
go. Yeah, I mean the -1 from Jordan Love is probably the worst QB start of the season from anybody. I
Yeah,
don't think I've seen a QB go in the negatives on the starting roster. So that definitely did not help him. I was a little nervous coming in. He needed 50 points from Jordan Love and Devontae Adams combined. He got 7. So worked out for me.
yeah,
But that moves me up to 3-2 after a decent start. But Eli falls to 3-2 after a 3-0 start. So maybe a little story developing there with Netflix and Hill.
yeah. I'm not quite sure what happened. I mean, last week I think he still put up a good performance. It just wasn't enough. And then this
Yeah.
week, his team. I mean, you can call it some managerial decisions. Brock Purdy was playing the Cowboys, who are the number one defense, and there's some arguments to be made there. But we'll have to see what he does going forward. I mean, clearly Brock Purdy's in there, but in that flex position.
hmm Yeah, some
But
decisions to be made.
next matchup, let's I mean, what? Let's go golfing loses to Baby Want Milky by surprising 1.8 points, 1.78 points. Charlie moves up to 2-3, Alex down to 0-5, and it's devastating. You gotta imagine. Josh Allen, another great week, but counteracted by Jared Goff. James Conner got injured, only put up 4.6. David Montgomery, a great week at 20.9. D Hop coming alive again, 22. Dalton Schultz kind of overperforming, 19.5. And then, DJ Chark also in the flex with a in the teens there. However, Alex's team it's struggling clearly. I mean, it's 0-5, but your Zay Jones and Adam Thielen are your wide receiver 1 and 2, which are crazy. And I guess
You had Amon Ra, who was
Amon Ra
out.
Owls. Okay. That's
Yeah.
better. That's better. But yeah, the big storyline here is Charlie's team could be great, but they've all been injured. I mean, Austin Eckler is hopefully healthy coming off the bye. T. Higgins is still dealing with a rib injury, but it looks like he's going to play through it. Aaron Jones missed last night's game. And then beyond that, Pat Freiermuth is also injured. David Montgomery's had a little bit of a hamstring issue in the early part of the season, and now James Conner is injured. So
Yeah, he's been dealing with it all season. It's unfortunate for him. He's getting Eckler back next week, which I know he's excited about. So that should be a huge addition to this squad as you lose James Conner. So kind of give and take, but obviously you take Eckler 10 times out of 10. But this was a really solid game. Two, I think, really pretty good performances. 129, 127, very respectable. Really unlucky for Alex here. Loses by 2 and just cannot catch a break anywhere and just falls to 0-5, and a much needed win for Charlie to sort of keep him competitive going forward.
yeah, very well put. Now we've got our first really, I mean, the number one closest matchup of the week here. We have Paul Allen pulling out the dub over Tower of London by a whopping 0.32 points. I mean, unheard of. That's the closest margin of victory in the history of the league. So Al moves up to 3-2, and Bennett, the previous contending champion, drops to 2-3, and it's interesting to see. I mean, because Al had some guys put up bad weeks, like Lamar Jackson with 7.9 and Derrick Henry with 9.2. Tank Dell kind of comes back to earth. Brandon Cooks with 2.3, and he still pulls out the dub. And nobody on his team even I mean, George Kittle got him the win, obviously, but beyond that, it was kind of crazy to see Al pull out this win in the like last second.
Yeah, and it wasn't a very strong game from either squad. Obviously,
No.
Al gets the win, but there's a couple of times we've seen Bennett sort of struggle. I know week 1 he struggled. He beat me in a very low scoring game, so it's happened a couple of times. He benched Zach Moss, which I mean I understand the decision with Jonathan Taylor returning, but I don't think I would have started him over like Craig Reynolds or Craig ended up doing better than Roshan because Roshan got hurt. But interesting decision there. I know he talked about it in the group chat. It's already been addressed, but he's disappointed himself for this one, and this one definitely hurts. It was a very winnable game. I mean, Al didn't have a stellar week, but he got the job done, and he's now above 500 for the first time this season after starting out 0-2.
Yeah,
So,
and Al was on my couch Sunday night, and his hopes were gone. He thought it was over. He was like, I can't do it. It's done.
yeah, George Kittle, his best season that he's had in a long time. He had 4 targets and 3 touchdowns, but that's just what he does, I suppose. Our next matchup, Hawk and Ball Torture versus Scary Terry's Big Toe. Scary Terry's Big Toe with the performance of the week at 183 to Hawk and Ball Torture at 109. Just an absolute mop. Nothing Sam can really do about this one. Wyatt had the 2 highlights of the week, DJ Moore and Jamar Chase, both dropping 50 burgers. And DJ Moore put up 49, but we'll give it to him. Jalen Hurts with another solid week, and that's all he really needs. Gabe Davis had a pretty good week too. A couple duds around the board, but who cares? When you have 2 guys drop 50, you're going to win every time. So he gets the job done and honestly just keeps winning. Wyatt keeps finding a way to win, and this week was a dominant win. And Sam, just unfortunate, another bad beat for him. He didn't have a great week either, but definitely could have won against some of these matchups, but just no chance in this one as his team only puts up 109. And he gets no really bad performances, just a bunch of mediocre performances. And, of course, Anthony Richardson exiting the game with the injury.
Yes. And then now, last matchup of the week, it's the next closest matchup. Christians own the Gibtards, moving up to 4-1, and CD's Nuts dropping, losing the last undefeated team in the league to 4-1. 95.1 to 94.3, a 0.8 margin of victory. And I mean, you got to mention it. Noah streamed Sam Howell, and he put up 27 points over Trevor Lawrence, and that got him the dub. it was kind of interesting. Christian McCaffrey had like a regular guy week, which is still better than most of the people on my team. Gary, and we have to also talk about this. The Gary Brightwell start. You're starting the Giants' third back. That was insane. Absolutely.
That was a crazy decision. I had no idea. I looked at this match and I was like, dude, why the hell is Gary Brightwell in his starting roster?
And then CD's nuts, just not a great matchup. I mean, it wasn't horrible by any means. You didn't break 100. I didn't break 100 either, but by league standards, you should be breaking 100 most weeks. It really got headlined by Nico Collins putting up a stinker and CeeDee Lamb putting up a stinker. And then Najee Harris, we've talked about him before, and Alan Lazard with Zach Wilson in there. There's nothing there. But he's got some buys and he's got some injuries. So that was a big reason why his team didn't put up as many points this week. Saquon Barkley obviously missed again. Keenan Allen on a bye. Deshaun Watson on a bye. Even though CJ Stroud had a pretty good week at 16, you got to respect that. Justin Herbert also on a bye. So,
yeah, I think the biggest decision here, or the biggest factor in this game was Noah with the stream of Sam Howell. And we were making fun of him too on Thursday night at halftime when he had like 1 point.
yeah,
I said like he's on demon mode, and then he actually came out and put up I think 3 touchdowns in the second half. So, and obviously getting him the win, not like it was a very pretty win by any means, but Henry talked about the injuries and the buys coming into the week, and Noah took advantage of it. I just thought this would be higher scoring. This was like my game of the week last week, just because
you
of the
called it.
And I mean, at least it was close, so it was a good game. But man, this was just a poop fest.
Yeah, I mean, there was some poop fest around the league this week, some craziness. But now let's take a look at what this coming week is going to look like. And, currently I'm a 9-point dog to Eli in this matchup. It's unfortunate because, I've lost 3 in a row after starting out 2-0. And now I'm facing the barrel of Eli putting up 130. And it's nerve-wracking. This is the house divided week. We've got me versus Eli. We've got Henry versus Wyatt. You're playing Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I think aren't Sam and Alex playing?
Yeah, there's a lot of good matchups. Yeah. We'll go through them.
I know. I'm just highlighting. We're highlighting high-level stuff.
A lot coming in.
Either way, I think some really important matchups for this one. For me, obviously, is going to be, as always, Kirk Cousins and TJ Hawkinson. They're playing the Bears, which are one of the worst defenses. So if they can both put up good numbers, I could edge it out. Beyond that, the return of Devontae Smith versus a pretty good Jets secondary. He put up 1.6 points last week, which is not really what I'm looking for. And really how Michael Pittman's going to shape out with Gardner Minshew gone. With Gardner Minshew now the starting quarterback, you got to expect that the backup's going to look to the wide receiver one a little bit more. But we'll see.
Yeah, just looking at it straight up. Obviously, facing the Bears is just an incredible matchup, and you have the stack, and now there's no Justin Jefferson, which is going to hurt Cousins, I think, but it's really going to be huge for Hawkinson. I think Hawkinson's going to start getting peppered and really going to step into like a huge role in that offense, I think. So if that is true, and again, they're facing the Bears, that could be a pretty scary duo, especially this week. So that's going to be huge. And then just looking at other matchups, I mean, there aren't really any great matchups for either of you other than that one. Other than Ramondre against the Raiders is kind of a decent matchup. And then he's got the 2 Rams guys against the Cardinals. But this should be a good game. And all eyes on Minnesota. I think it's going to have a huge part, as it always does for you.
Yeah.
But against the Bears especially, and they're down Justin Jefferson. But next matchup is Captain Lakua inbound versus Baby One Milky, me versus Charlie. The return of Austin Eckler and the exit of Justin Jefferson. My team doesn't have any buys this week. I am going to be down Jettas, which hurts. That's why my projection is only 103 right now. I haven't slotted anyone in there. I've got some options. I've got Mike Evans and Tyler Lockett that I'm going to put in there to replace Jahan Dotson and Justin Jefferson.
So it would be almost even because those guys are projected around 12 to 13 each week, depending on the matchup.
Yeah, so I should get added 13 straight up and then just like an extra 3 because of the difference between Dotson.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just going to be the Josh Allen, Austin Eckler, David Montgomery show. I mean, those are his 3 stars. And he's got the 2 Carolina receivers, which is going to be interesting. If they're if their offense gets moving, then I mean, I could be screwed. But we'll see. They're gonna have to pass the ball a lot since they're facing Miami, so it'll be a shootout game. But
Mhm.
I don't know if Bryce Young's really looked the part yet. We'll see. And then I know for me, it's just eyes on the Rams. They have an incredible matchup against Arizona, and I'm thrilled about it. So
Huge eyes on the Rams game.
yeah, we'll see if Brees Hall can keep it up. He had a good week last week, but Cooper Kupp, man, it's just hope redeem me.
Third matchup on this week 6, we have Riley Reid option versus Tower London. Bennett's going to try and bounce back and get back to 500 and knock Tal down to 500. Currently, as we look at the projections, Bennett is projected 10 over, and Khalil Herbert is, I guess, projected out still on Tal's team.
So is Achan. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this actually, does Bennett have anyone out?
I don't think Roshan is.
Reynolds?
Oh yeah, he is.
Okay, so this current projections aren't really accurate, but we roughly know the two teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big key part of this is going to be Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce versus Denver, one of the worst defenses. And beyond that, Chris Olave against Houston, who also has a pretty tough defense. I mean, a pretty rough defense. And then for Tal, I think it's going to come back with how he substitutes running backs. I mean, he's down Khalil Herbert likely. He's down Devon Achane already. He's been placed on the IR, right? Or no,
I don't think they've
placed on the
officially
IR.
moved them, but like
Yeah.
they're going. It's kind of like Justin Jefferson,
Yeah.
which kind of stinks because we can't place them on IR to replace them on waiver night.
Yeah.
But we just can't do it yet because the team hasn't done it.
Yeah.
Which sucks.
It's rigged.
Yeah.
But beyond that, Calvin Ridley against Indianapolis and then Stephon Diggs against the Giants, who have a pretty bad defense. Those are going to be some key matchups to watch out for Tal.
Yeah, it's also just Travis Kelce's health. If that ankle thing is going to do anything, obviously this, like you said, this is a great matchup against Denver. So like, pray that Kelce's playing because this could be a huge week if he's healthy. But of course, if he's out, such a downgrade for Bennett's team. As we saw in week 1, he had a bad game. Still got the win in week 1, but you just take such a big hit when Kelce's gone.
Yeah, and if he loses, I mean, you think about, the defending champion being 2-4 through 6 weeks is he starting to lose hold of that crown? Is his head getting too big?
The championship hangover, it's a real thing.
It is a real thing.
Yeah, here's a sidebar, but I'm in another league, and the guy who won it last year is 0-5. So I don't know, crazy stuff. But speaking of 0-5, let's go golfing, hawk and ball torture. Someone's going to be the lone defeat. I don't know how you say it, unwinning team.
The
lone 0-win team.
The regular season poop ball loser.
Yeah. I've still some more regular season to be had, but this is a first deciding factor. Projected 122 to 109 in favor of hawk and ball torture. I don't know if these lineups are officially set or not, so I won't read too deep into them. Yeah. There's no guys who are doubtful or out, so maybe it is pretty accurate.
I think it is.
Right off the rip, it's Justin Fields against Minnesota. It's a poor secondary, and you can always pass the ball against Minnesota. And Fields has looked really good the past couple of weeks, which I think it's just given Sam quietly a really big boost. He just hasn't been able to cash in because he's gotten unlucky. So if that just continues to work, he could have a huge week. And then on the other side, it's obviously all the Lions guys that he has.
Oh, there is actually a key difference. Isaiah Pacheco is now on Alex's team, and Alexander Madison is now on Sam's team.
Oh yeah, that hasn't been processed yet. Well, then they're projected pretty similar, but
here, look, we can do a 30-second sidebar. I can go in here and push this through right now.
Live on the pod, send the trade through.
On the pod. You guys are seeing behind the curtains what it looks like. God, what is it doing?
To log in.
Oh my God. Okay.
Well, it's not working. There we go.
You guys will never see this password. I got it locked down.
It's like 8 digits.
8 digits and a fingerprint scan.
I just got the noti. The trade went through. Isaiah Pacheco for Alexander Madison. Kind of an interesting trade.
Now let's refresh and look.
There aren't any, I don't think either of these guys are necessarily superstars, obviously. That changes things. 118 to 113 is the new projection.
A 4-point swing right there, live.
So, yeah, that's pretty interesting to see. But yeah, Isaiah Pacheco's had some explosive weeks for Sam. He's got
got
good
Denver
touchdown
this
upside, and he's got a great matchup. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So that could, and also
Alexander Madison.
Chicago
Oh my gosh, this is going to go crazy.
But he's doubling up on the Minnesota Vikings now that Justin Jefferson's gone. It's definitely not a bad short-term play. But I think Jordan Addison's gonna have a huge week, and Madison definitely could have a huge week. So, eyes on this game. This is a good primetime game. The 2-5 teams.
I'm gonna call it now. This is matchup of the week.
Game of the week. Not even primetime. Game of the week.
Game of the week. Pre-call right there.
We got to give a primetime game as well. I forgot. Yeah, we can give that one game of the week. Oh no, we've got a game of the week.
Oh, this is the primetime matchup. The other one is game of the week because that has major playoff implications.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I guess that has more playoff implications than this. Well,
this is your primetime game. This is your shootout. One of these two teams is probably going to put up the top score of the week. We have Scary Terry's Big Toe versus CD's Nuts. Both 4-1 teams ranked first and second in the league. The two top dogs battling it out in primetime, 129.9 to 125.7. Anything could happen here.
Yeah, this could be a good one. The 1 and the 2 seed, man, the only 4-1 teams. Someone's going to be sitting atop the throne by themselves after this week. Well, Henry's coming off a bad week, just got all his buys out of the way, though. Wyatt doesn't look to have any buys again. They're going to hit him eventually. But, if he does what he did last week, he's not going to have any issues. But, yeah, this should be a solid one. And we'll see. Oh, yeah, also Justin Herbert. We'll see how that hand plays into effect. We haven't gotten to observe that yet.
I was going to say, I think that's going to be a big piece here, and that's one reason why I think I'm hesitant to start Josh Palmer in the flex. Obviously, he's not a guy you want in the flex anyway, but with the injuries that I've had to deal with, this is where I'm at. And I don't know if I'm going to do it because their backup's irrelevant. But beyond that, the return of Saquon for Henry. He's been on a high ankle sprain down for 3 weeks now. If he misses this week, this could be and they're playing the Bills, who they've got a pretty good rush D. You got Von Miller in there. You got a couple other guys key in the secondary. But I believe that the Giants are probably going to try to pass because the Bills are down Tre'Davious White. They're down I'm forgetting the guy's name, but they're number 2 cornerback. And then they also just lost a safety in the last game. So
I think they're down Poyer as well.
Yeah, Jordan Poyer. Yeah.
Jordan Poyer.
And then for Wyatt, you've got Jalen Hurts versus the Jets, pretty good defense, and then Tony Pollard versus the Chargers, who have a bad run D. So that could be a lot of points there for Tony Pollard this week. Damian Pierce, you kind of want to bounce back, and then DJ Moore versus the Vikings. If Justin Fields can keep it together, that's a key player to watch out for.
Yeah, Wyatt's got some pretty good matchups, honestly. Kind of across the board. And I can't really say the same about Henry. He's got some rougher matchups. He's got good ones for Alvin and CD. But other than that, honestly, they're not really all that good. Other than Raheem Mostert, it doesn't really matter because of the Miami offense. But this should be a good game. One to keep an eye on, definitely.
Absolutely. And now that we've done with the matchups, I guess it's time to talk about injuries.
Oh, wait, we missed one. Paul Allen versus Christians on the Gibtards.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I could take this one. It's the 3-2 Paul Allen squad versus the 4-1 Christians on the Gibtards. 3rd and 7th in the league. The projection is 113 to 85. That seems wrong. Yeah, he's got Tank Dell in there who's got a concussion, so he's gonna be out this week. But so that's not entirely accurate. But we're just gonna have to see with Paul Allen. Is George Kittle gonna have any sort of production, or is he going to go out there and put up another stick like we've seen, or is he going to go out there and put up 3 touchdowns? You never really know what you're getting. So it's just, I've mentioned it before, this is a pretty boomer bust team. He can definitely score a ton of points if all of his guys go off defensively, or all of his guys can kind of throw up a stinker. But AJ Brown's been coming around a lot, so he's got something to keep an eye on. But we'll see if Sauce Gardner can sort of keep him down on the Jets. But on the other side of the ball, Trevor Lawrence back in the starting squad, it looks like. I guess he doesn't want to take Sam Howell against the Falcons. But Christian McCaffrey against Cleveland, he's pretty matchup proof, as we've seen. Tutu with a good matchup. Cole Kmet with a good matchup. and just kind of hoping that Jahmyr Gibbs starts to come around eventually. But Christian's of the Gibbtards, if he puts up a good win here, he's going to be second in the standings potentially.
Yeah, because we know that one of the other 4-1 teams is definitely going down. So if he can pull out the win as he's projected to right now versus Paul Allen, Noah could be looking pretty good, and he could start to think about building that postseason roster. I mean, you have McCaffrey, which is phenomenal, but there's a few areas where Noah's kind of cycling through guys that maybe you want to try and package a bench piece and upgrade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we can go into some injury talk.
Yeah. You
We've
go
got
ahead since you've got
several. Yeah, the first one, the big one, Justin Jefferson hamstring, placed on the IR. It stinks. Number 1 overall draft pick. I think it's the third year in a row that number 1 overall pick went on the IR. Jettas this year, Jonathan Taylor last year, and Chris McCaffrey 2021. So it's kind of a recurring theme. Sucks. I'm just gonna have to battle through it. Just traded for him. Obviously, I got one good week from him, and then he got injured this week, and he's slated to miss 4 games, potentially more, and just it stinks. It really does.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to see. I mean, you were super happy about getting him. You had Cooper Kupp and Jefferson.
Yeah.
And it's a really tough loss. But speaking of something that could not be serious, but it also could be serious, it's up in the air, is the Travis Kelce ankle injury. He left the game, but he later returned, caught a few passes, put up a pretty decent week. But we don't, at least I don't have clarification on what it is at the moment. I think they said some sort of a sprain, but they didn't go into the severity of it in the injury report. So it's going to be interesting to watch and see how that goes forward.
Yeah, another ankle injury, Khalil Herbert, high ankle sprain. They have confirmed that he's going to be out for several weeks, unlike Kelce. So gonna have to look for alternatives. Roschon Johnson may be trending up. I know he's got a concussion this week as well. So we're just going to highlight them together right now as Roschon Johnson with a concussion, Khalil Herbert with a high ankle sprain, Chicago backfields in shambles. But yeah, that's all I got there.
The next one is addressing Charlie, who's kind of injury riddled already, but James Conner, he left the game with a knee injury. And from reports that I saw from some doctors that we pay attention to that follow the NFL, it's likely an MCL. And James Conner actually has a pretty large history of MCL issues. He's had a tear in the past and then multiple sprains. So this guy believes that he could miss 1 to 3 weeks. And
he got placed on the IR today.
Oh, already?
Officially. Yeah.
Well, defeats the purpose of that, but hey, I was right.
Yeah, that sucks. I've got him in another league, and he was having a pretty solid season. He was moving. He was a huge part of that Cardinals offense. So we'll see if that affects or how much that affects the Cardinals going forward. Zay Jones knee injury. I don't know a ton about it. Maybe you can take this one. I know he was out 2 weeks ago with it, but he came back and.
So he had a phenomenal week 1. He put up like 27 points. Went down with a knee injury at the end of the game and missed the past 3 weeks actually, because this is week 5. Yeah. And then played this week and re-injured that knee, but they haven't listed the severity of it. And they haven't said that it is the same injury. They just said it is an injury to the same knee. So it could just be a bruise. The issue he was dealing with was some sort of a ligament sprain. So I'm hoping that it's just a bruise because he might be somebody that I have to start playing.
Yeah, and that's good for Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley, but definitely hurts Trevor Lawrence a little bit. Just not having as many weapons. And Zay Jones is a solid player. We've seen flashes of him before. But the next injury, Aaron Jones, hamstring injury. He's been out for several weeks to start the season. He did it week 1 after having a great game. He played this past week and then re-injured it. And now they're on a bye. So something to monitor. They're not going to announce any information as of now because of the bye, but just something to highlight. But we can keep moving because we're running out of time here on this call.
The next one, Devon Achane, MCL sprain, and he's likely going to miss 1 to 3 weeks. They haven't put him on the IR yet, but that's what we're expecting from the injury report. So something to watch out for Tal. And then next, this one addresses Sam. Anthony Richardson, shoulder injury. From what I've seen, it seems like a pretty significant type 3 or 4 sprain in his shoulder ligament, and it looks like he could miss significant time this season.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty serious injury. I've heard that as much as like 6 weeks. So Gardner Minshew, if anyone's really desperate for a quarterback, is definitely going to be available. And Anthony Richardson, man, he looks incredible when he plays, but this is already his second injury in 5 weeks in
Third,
the NFL.
third.
Is it his third injury now?
He had a minor shoulder injury, a knee injury.
And
No,
a
that's
concussion.
fourth. That's oh,
He had a
okay.
concussion as well.
Yeah.
I mean, geez. Yeah, prayers out to Anthony Richardson. He looks awesome. Just got to stay healthy, man.
I know, and it's tough. But now let's move into some of our quick hits talking points. I mentioned it earlier, but I'll highlight it again. We have the house divided week. It is me versus Eli and Wyatt versus Henry. And then beyond that, we have Alex versus Sam, the 2-0-5 Devils, and then Kevin versus Charlie, which really isn't house divided, but you can just say that it's going to be a pretty ugly matchup across the league. You can expect tensions to be high, and regardless of the results, there are going to be some pissed off fellas.
Yeah, it's definitely a big week. I mean, we're starting to get to that point. People are starting to look at the playoff picture, and we're almost halfway through the season now. So, it's definitely in everyone's minds. But you put in this point about how Charlie hasn't cared about the last 2 weeks, lost both those weeks. This was prior to this week 5 game.
Yeah.
This sort of put him, he didn't really make a lot of roster moves when his team was injured and kind of just getting off to sort of a rough 1-3 start. You mentioned here that last season Eli went 6-8, lost the Poop Bowl, and then had to go to that WNBA game. Whereas you went 8-6 and then went to the Super Bowl and almost won. So it does make a big difference. Just to get a 2-game skid like that, but we'll see how it affects him. And he bounced back this week with a win, but I hope to put him back in the L column this week. So best of luck to him. But I hope he loses this week.
Next, we have the Bears offense. I mean, Justin Fields looks pretty good the past 2 games. DJ Moore drops almost 50 points. There's definitely something to watch out for fantasy-wise. For the rest of the players, I mean, you've got some injured running backs in there. But beyond that, I don't know who else on the Bears is going to be valuable. You got to start thinking maybe sell high on DJ Moore if you can, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I just put that in here because they finally looked like incredible back-to-back weeks for for Justin Fields and Cole Kmet becoming alive. So solid fantasy assets finally coming out of the Bears. But up next is Josh Allen. In a loss to the Jaguars, he still put up a ton of points. He just is once again QB1, and Charlie drafted him as such, and he is performing after a slow week 1, but he has bounced back incredibly. Just something to highlight. Josh Allen's been sick this year yet again.
Yeah, definitely the highlight player of Charlie's team so far.
Mm-hmm.
Moving to somebody who may be less of a highlight, but still a valuable piece, Jared Goff. In home games, he's incredible, even without Amon-Ra. They go out and they win this game versus the Packers, and it seemed pretty dominant from what I saw. It didn't look like the Packers were really ever close in the game. And his fantasy value is pretty good too. I mean, he is, you can see right here, only projected 14.8 this week, but we've seen him put up 30 plus and high 20s repeatedly this season.
Yeah, his home game splits are really crazy, actually, which is really interesting to me. It's the same last season. But next point, Breece Hall, finally back. Robert Saleh announced this past week that he was going to be off his snap count. So Dalvin Cook shares are definitely down. That hurts Tal, but he's pretty much unplayable. But Breece Hall, he had a pretty easy matchup against Denver, one of the best matchups, as we've said countless times. But he took advantage of it, put up 28 points, had like 170 yards rushing and 22 carries, and had that 170-yard run. So who knows what his value is going forward rest of season, but that's a huge week, especially as the Breece Hall manager. I love to see it.
Yeah, I agree. And this was a point that you added, and I mean, it's a bit ironic now, but is Zach Moss going to be relevant even with Jonathan Taylor back? Of course, Jonathan Taylor is back, and he's a premier running back, but with what we've seen from Zach Moss this season, not only in fantasy, but in the NFL, he's been dominant. And in the last game, kind of just took away Jonathan Taylor's coming out party. He was supposed to come back and, hopefully have a good game after leaving the players unable to play list or players unable to perform list or whatever it is. And Zach Moss kind of just steals the show. So it's up in the air right now. You assume that they're going to start working Jonathan Taylor in more and more, but it remains to be seen, at least this week.
Yeah, he's played with a chip on his shoulder and looked really solid this past week. Got 2 touchdowns and had a huge run. So
yeah.
But someone else who looks solid, Jamar Chase drops 50 points, finally starting to return value on what he was drafted to be, the number 2 overall pick. He had a really slow start to the season, but he's been doing a lot better as of recent and just finally starting to look like his usual self. Although it was never really his fault because it was Joe Burrow's fault, which leads me to our next point, which is Joe Burrow finally looked good again. Of course, it's only 1 week, so small sample size, but hopefully that continues to work out. And then as T. Higgins returns, we'll maybe start getting some more valuable assets for all four of those big Bengals players that were drafted so highly.
Yeah, I agree. And Burrow really in this game looked like he was able to finally step into a lot of passes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was important. But next, Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, they both had huge games again. But we have to ask, where is Devontae Smith? I mean, obviously he's on my team, but puts up a stinker 1.6 points. He got targeted, I think, 3 or 4 times and only caught one ball. I'm hoping that it's just a down week and he bounces right back. But I mean, my team needs him to.
Yeah, it's kind of weird the splits between the first couple games and the most recent games. Devontae Smith sort of stole the show early in the season. Now it's AJ Brown, and that could just be sort of what happens. Only one guy can really go off because that's all they need to do is have one guy be explosive, and that it just works out that way.
I know, but it sucks for me.
It does. Oh yeah, it does. And honestly, it could suck for AJ Brown too. So, but Bijan Robinson down week, he got in the end zone for the second time this season, but still only scored 13 points. And the Falcons won because Ritter was throwing the ball well. Kyle Pitts and Drake London had solid weeks. Just something that we haven't seen the Falcons offense do, but they did it this week, and Ritter looked solid. So maybe that hurts Bijan, but of course, start him every week. Don't think about it, but just something to sort of monitor. Maybe even Desmond Ritter ends up being better than we thought. Small sample size, of course, but.
And then you want to take the next one too, and I'll hit the last.
Yeah, I put in here 49ers are the best team in the league. If you guys want to argue me, go ahead. But man, do they look good. Sunday primetime was supposed to be a great game against the Cowboys, and they just absolutely stomped them. Brock Purdy had the best game of his career. Brock Purdy still never lost a regular season game. They have Christian. I mean, I don't know what else more to be. I don't think anyone would argue me. But I put that in here. 49ers best team in the league. They're my favorite to win the Super Bowl. They were going into this season. They still are.
Yeah, they definitely look like the most complete team. They're making the least amount of mistakes. Brock Purdy looks sharp and he throws the ball where it needs to go on time to the right guy. Last point, and this is why I wanted to take this one, is because I'm beat. The Patriots are now awful. They're a poverty franchise. I like all of our fantasy player values, highly suspect on a separate note. I have Ramondre Stevenson now, but it's just painful to watch them play. And we thought that it was going to be better bringing Bill O'Brien in at offensive coordinator. But when you have literally the worst wide receiver core in the NFL, they have the lowest contested catch rate in the NFL. And your defense, you lost two of your best defensive players. Matt Judon down for the season with an arm injury. Christian Gonzalez down for the season with a torn labrum. I can't wait to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes 6 months from now.
Yeah, that's kind of what you got to hope for, man, at this point. Start throwing for Caleb Williams, potentially. Sell the season, burn it down. But that's all the time that we've got, gentlemen. Thanks for listening yet again. Best of luck to everyone. Waivers run tonight, so get your claims in. But Gabe, as always, great pod. Always a pleasure.
Great pod, sir. Have a good evening. Good luck
Cheers to you
this week.
Yep, good luck, everyone.